to the lead generation webinar. We're very excited. This masterclass today with Mitch Ribak. Excited that everybody's joining us. We've got a very strong turnout of people who are ready to learn and be engaged with today's great content. I've been lucky enough personally. My name's Tim Collins, by the way. I'm the Director of Sales with Real Estate Webmasters. I've been lucky enough to sit through some of Mitch's masterclass work before, so I'm excited that you're going to get to hear this stuff today. So just a couple of housekeeping things. The webinar is going to be roughly 1 hour, so please pay attention. Switch off your cell phone, put it to the side, close any other distractions, shut the door, turn off Netflix, and pay attention, because this is good stuff. And get a pen and paper handy so you can take notes. If you have questions, Mitch wants this to be interactive, so please ask questions on the fly. Put them in the question box, in the chat box. I'll be moderating that, and I will ask them on your behalf and kind of chip in as we go. And then when it's finished, at the end of this, we'll be sending out a recording so that you can listen to it again. And if you miss anything, you'll be able to pick it up that way. But best time to listen is now. Best time to pay attention is now. And that way you can ask questions on the fly. So I wanted to introduce you to the mighty Mitch. He is the CEO of Inside Sales Agents, a company designed to increase real estate conversions by promptly and correctly following up. Specifically real estate, this guy lives and breathes it. He's also the owner of Tropical Realty Beachside, a consistent top 10 ranking brokerage in Brevard County, Florida. Hopefully I pronounced that right. He has 80 agents. So he's not only does he know a lot about how to do this for you, he's also built it in his own business. So he just has the track record. He's the author of 2 popular real estate books, 100 miles per hour marketing for real estate, and So You Have Your Real Estate License, Now What? So just some really cool stuff. Mitch is also a speaker for internet marketing, lead conversion, inside sales agents, and how to kick off your career in real estate. This guy has truly done it all. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Mitch.
Well, good morning, everybody, or is it afternoon? I guess it's morning for some of you and afternoon for all of us. It's kind of funny. I read through the list of people here, and we have a ton of people on this call, and I know a lot of you, so that's kind of fun. Just as Tim said, I've been doing this for a long time in my brokerage, consistently doing, we call first-year leads, close to 3%, 2.6 to 3% on first-year leads, and we're about 5.8% now on long-term leads, and we'll get into that a little bit and what that means. But basically, the goal of today is just to give you tips on how to convert more sales. Some of this might be basic to some of you people out there. Some of this will be way too advanced for some of you people. We have a variety of people on the call, so I'm trying to cover as many bases as possible. I always like to start with my stats because, and not to brag, but when I talk about stats, it's important to know that I actually know what I'm talking about because I do it every day. There's a lot of people out there, who are claiming all sorts of stuff. Well, we track our stats on a yearly basis and over a long-term period. We've been tracking stats since 2009. We've been doing lead conversions since 2002, so a long time. So this is just some stats from last year. We had 8,633 leads. We had 65 agents with 25 of them on leads. We had 329 sales from leads out of 640 sales, so almost 50%, or right around 50%. Long-term closing is 5.5%. It's actually 5.8%. I haven't updated the slide yet. And what does that mean? Long-term means the leads that came on in 2009 closed in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, and so on. So the key is we know that if we do a great job of nurturing these leads, we're going to get a higher conversion rate over time. So last year, for instance, in 2009 leads, I believe we had 12 sales last year from 2009 leads. Anyways, that was $127 million in transaction volume that year. And as we go through this, if you have any questions at all, please take a few seconds and put your question in the answer box or the question box, because I can't answer the questions if you don't ask. All right. So going more and more. So part of this exercise is so you understand the life cycle of a lead. And I'm not going to talk about the left-hand column there. I'm going to talk about the 2016 sales. So in 2016, sales from leads from 2016, so those are leads we got in 2016, that closed in 2016, was 54% of the sales that we got from internet leads. So of that 300 plus sales, 54% were from leads from last year, or from the current year. 24% were leads that were a year or older. 11% were 2 years or older, and 11% were 3 years or older. So as you can show, obviously it goes down, but that 11%, for 2013 or prior leads was 30 sales we got last year from leads that were 3 years or older. And how many of you actually take the time to actually, follow up your leads and stay on top of your leads long term? I know that you don't, because nobody does. I've been teaching this since 2007, so I know through my paths and that nobody really follows up with their leads long enough to convert. Interesting number that a friend of mine did. They own a large brokerage in Atlanta, and they did a study they contacted 1,000 leads. They have 500,000 leads in their database, which is ridiculous, but they're a very large 2,200 agent brokerage. They did a study, and they contacted 1,000 people of their leads. So not just called, but they actually contacted 1,000 people. And out of that 1,000 people, 380 bought a house, and 200 more were still looking for a house. So what does that mean? That's 58% of the leads that were coming in are buying a house or bought a house. The question always is, are they going to buy a house from you, or are they going to buy a house from somebody else? We know with inside sales agents, we know our numbers, and we know we average 52% of the leads are positive outcome, meaning they are active leads, or they're calendared, meaning they're going to buy later than 30 days but gave us a time frame, or hot leads, which are going to buy within 30 days. So we know that 52% of the people are going to buy a house. It's just the question is, will they be my agents, or will they be you, or will they be whoever agents we're calling for? But this is just a good example of how your leads are distributed, your sales are distributed over a period of time. And the next slide actually breaks that down even a little further. So I took all the leads from 2016, remember that 54% from the last slide, and 48% of those, so almost half, bought within 3 months. So this talks to about the urgency of the phone call and the persistency of the phone call. We know if you call once, first of all, we know 42% of leads are never called. We know if you call once, you'll get a hold of 21%. We know on our third call, we've gotten a hold of between 60 and 70%. And then the numbers fall off dramatically down to about a 1% contact rate, 2% contact rate on the fourth call on. But as you can see, 82% buy within 6 months. So if you're not on top of your leads, you're giving up a tremendous amount of opportunity.
So Mitch, just to clarify, were you saying that you should do the fourth call, or you shouldn't do the fourth call?
We've called them when we have time. We don't chase them like we used to. We've learned, it's all about efficiency in our time. So we know at the end of, so here's the way I look at it on that time. So if you make 100 dials in a day, and it's a 2% contact rate, that means we have someone sitting there all day long to talk to 2 people. It's not efficient use of anybody's time, not an agent's time, not our caller's time, not anybody's time. So it just doesn't make sense to continue calling after the 4th time. We are testing some text stuff right now to see how that works.
Right.
Any other questions out there? Well, before we go to the next slide.
Yeah, we do have some other questions. So one of the questions was from Scott. Thank you, Scott. And he said, of the 8,633 leads in 2016, where did they come from? What were the lead sources?
Almost all of our lead sources is pay-per-click.
Right.
So we don't do much more than pay-per-click.
Got it. And the other question we had from Drew was, what is between those kind of 3 and 4 calls, what's the time gap that you're leaving in between the calls?
Sure. So we've done a lot of studies on this over the years. We used to call multiple times a day. We tried calling every day. We tried leaving messages. We've done everything you could possibly think of. We've tried. We've done texting, which I'm glad to answer questions on texting. To me, that's kind of I don't know. We'll get into that in a minute. But
they're interested in the text strategy, so don't forget about that.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that in a second. So call time, we call every other day. We call every other day, and we don't leave a phone number anymore. So we used to leave phone numbers all the time, messages rather. We don't leave messages anymore. And what we found is our contact rates went down dramatically on the second and third and fourth calls when we left messages. So once we stopped leaving messages, that's how we're able to get up to a high rate. So with texting, I talked to a guy the other day, and I love talking to people that have been doing it for like 3 months and know the entire lead conversion world, and don't have any stats to prove it. So I was talking to him about texting. He's like, yeah, we have an incredible contact rate. We get a hold of between 35 and 40% with texting. I go, why don't you call? He goes, well, we don't want to call because that's a lot of work to call. And so, and I won't say what I said to the guy, but it's just kind of chicken marketing is texting, in my opinion. Now we do our testing right now, texting after the third call, because at that point we know we're not going to get them by phone, most likely. So we are testing that right at the moment. But when I test things for a minimum of 3 months, usually 6 months, to make sure they're working. I don't want to test things. You can't test things for a week; it doesn't work.
Right.
Any other questions there before I move on?
One of the person said around the text strategy, is the point of the text to then try and get the person onto the phone? Is that like what's the action that you're trying to get?
Well, that's what our message is going to be, because by the time we have sent by the time we've made the fourth phone call, they've hopefully gotten our listings from us, and the conversation is about talking about the listings that we're sending them, and we'll get into a little more detail on that because that's all part of the process as we get past this slide.
Perfect. So just one thing to cover this off. Deanna had a question. What is pay-per-click? So I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, pay-per-click is if you go into Google's the easiest one to talk about. If you go to Google and your first 2 or 3 people listed on any search that you did, those are pay-per-clicks. You're basically paying every time somebody clicks on your website. So we captured about 10 to 12%. And our average click cost runs about $1.25. So that's kind of how we figure that. All right. Anything else before we move on?
Very good. Let's move on. I'll keep coming through these, but please keep asking questions. These questions are great.
Okay. So why do people fail? Why do brokers fail? Teams fail? Agents fail? Most of the people that I talk to and do my speaking and consulting with these days is brokers and teams. I don't do a lot with individual agents anymore. There's just only so much time in a day. So part of his expectations, I talked to a guy the other day. He started getting leads about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. It hasn't had a sale yet. And I said, well, how many leads have you gotten in 6 months? He said, I've gotten 60. Well, if the average conversion rate is less than 1%, that means he's got to get 100 leads to get a sale, right? So his expectations, he actually thought out of 60 leads, he should have had 5 or 10 sales by then. So, and that brings to the type of lead. So if you have a lead that's a property inquiry lead, that's a much easier sell than a lead that's a raw registration lead. When I talk numbers, I'm strictly talking about raw registration leads. I'm not talking about anything but that. So, other leads should have a higher conversion rate, like Zillow leads and Trulia leads and Realtor.com leads. You should be in the 10 to 15% conversion rate on those at the minimum. Other reasons why they fail is agents getting too many leads. So we've found over the years of doing this that anything more than 45 to 60 leads in a month is too overwhelming for most agents. So we used to give 100 leads a month to each agent, and we realized that our conversion rates went up dramatically when we limited that to 30 to 60 leads a month. We average about 45 leads a month right now. From a broker or a team leader is lack of inspection or accountability. One of my favorite lines is by a guy named Chet Holmes. He says, if you don't inspect, they don't respect. And I'll give you a quick story on that. We're dealing with it right now. We transfer leads all the time. So we got an email right now from one of my top agents, but what we've also found, and I don't think I have this anywhere here, so I'll bring it up now. When an agent starts to do more than 65, 70% of their business as personal leads, they will not work leads anymore. So this example I'm going to give you is again, literally just happened before we went on the webinar, is we transfer leads. If we give an action item to an agent and they don't do it whatever's supposed to be done the action item, we give them generally 24 to 48 hours, generally 24, and then we transfer the lead. So this agent's all upset, yelling and screaming, and so I looked at her numbers for the year. She's had 1 sale this year. She hasn't got new leads for probably 3 months now. And we've been transferring leads like crazy out of her because She's done almost $7 million in business, which is a lot of business here where we live. Average sales 220, and only one sale from leads. So when I talk to her after I hang up with you guys, I'm going to basically tear her apart or tell her to go find another brokerage because I don't have any patience. So the meaning is I kind of, because of the ISA company, I haven't spent as much time inspecting, and therefore there's no respect. And that was the purpose of telling you about that. On the same idea as you can overanalyze things. If people are overanalyzing things, it doesn't help either. It actually makes things more difficult because you can't just be critical about every single thing that's going on. It takes a lot of trial and error to make this work properly. And if you overanalyze, you're going to have the same issues if you don't analyze at all. Lack of first phone calls, that's the key. It's the reason why our first call service is so powerful right now and doing so well. We know we're calling your leads within 2 to 3 minutes, and we're calling 7 days a week. And we're not calling just once. So lack of first phone calls. As I said earlier, the NAR number for that is, I don't have the number because we've not had that issue. 42% of leads are never called. Another thing is that's, again, blows my mind is people that don't do anything with leads that have no phone number. So when we go through the process in a few minutes when we go through this, every single lead you get should go through this process. Obviously, leads with no phone number or a bad phone number you can't call. But last year we had 83 sales from leads with no phone numbers. And that's just by following the steps that we have. When I give you these steps, and if you do these steps, you'll get more sales. Very, very simple. And then, of course, the most important part of this is lack of training and follow-up and ongoing training. We are nonstop training agents always. So once that comes in, there's no phone call follow-up after the initial phone call. And again, I'm still talking about why people fail. And I think you have to know why people fail. Because if you don't know why people fail, you don't know how to fix it. And these are the reasons why people fail. And this is from years of understanding other teams and brokers and agents. Wrong mindset. So let me give you a mindset key. I train my agents all the time that instead of, well, let me go back. When most agents say, get a lead that says they're not buying for 6 months, they say, great, well, I'll send you listings, and if you see anything you like, let me know and contact me when you're ready. That's 99.9% of the agents I've ever talked to do that. What we train our agents to understand is you have a 6-month opportunity to create a relationship. And when we go through some of the stuff we're going to go through in a little bit, you'll understand the process of our phone call follow-up and stuff like that. Okay? Let's see.
Couple of questions. Can I just
Sure.
jump in with a couple of questions?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yep. I get on a roll sometimes and I forget, so.
That's all right. You can't stop him. I just want to kind of interject so that they're kind of relevant to the bit of the content you're on. But
sure.
Julie had a question around, so people want to know kind of what do you say when you call and text people? What's the message?
We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. That's in the future. Yeah.
Okay. And a kind of another version of that, Tim was asking, when you phone people, do you leave a voicemail every time?
So we don't leave a message on the first contact until the last call. All right. Because what happens now with caller ID, which everybody has, they will not, if they see your number, they know it's you and they don't want to talk to you, they're not going to answer the phone. However, if they see a number come up 2 or 3 times, this is why we don't call every day. They see a number come up 2 or 3 times, they're more apt to answer because they're curious to see who it was, because most telemarketing companies don't call from the same number every time they call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
Anything else you want to ask me before I move on?
Yeah, one other one. I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but Ethan was asking, what's the success rate of phone calls versus emails?
There's no comparison. Not the emails, and again, that's the chicken way of marketing. Emails are nice, and if you have the right emails, and I think I'm going to talk about drip campaigns a little bit in here, then you can definitely get sales from it if you're doing everything else. That's why we've got 83 sales from leads with no phone numbers last year. But nothing beats building a relationship. You got to build a relationship, or everybody's registering on at least 5 websites right now. Everybody's getting listing updates from people. If you're not going a step further, you're not getting sales.
It's hard to put your personality into an email.
Yeah, you can't do it. And emails get misread.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Emails could be mistaken for arrogance. There's all sorts of stuff. I do as little through email as I can. Obviously, with the amount of people that call me and email me daily, I get 500 emails a day. I got to do a lot by email, but I prefer phone calls. because I can
And
actually
you have a fantastic personality, so why not use it?
right, right, and that's the thing, So part of the challenge is if you don't have a personality, that's a really, really difficult part of the job. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but some people aren't funny. And I'm not funny. I just laugh at myself, so therefore I get people to laugh. But the key is you got to have a personality, and you got to be in a good mood. Again, I don't want to get into the phone call yet because we got a little more to go before we get there. Um,
Okay, carry on.
okay, so lack of training we talked about. For team leaders, relying on agents to do their job, including making phone calls, sending emails, drip campaigns. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's a reason why teams and brokers fail at this stuff. No sales strategy. So I like to share this little tidbit with everybody because it's one of my best sales strategies I came up with. And by the way, when I got into real estate, I knew zero people. I traveled every day. I was the first online dating service, and I traveled every day. So when I got into real estate, I knew nobody but my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and her mother, and they were both poor. They weren't buying houses. So what I learned is if I show the best house that I think they're going to buy second to last, I had an 80% rate of writing an offer. So I'd look at all the homes, and you get good at knowing which homes they're going to buy if you're really listening to what they want. And I always put the best house second to last, and I had 80% rate of writing offers when I did that. So great little sales strategy. But that's another part of the problem is people get leads, get them in the car, and then they have no sales strategy. That's part of the reason why we track the next thing. Hey, we track showings and contract rates because when you track those rates, and I believe we're going to share the form that we use when we send out the recording that we use for tracking. But we track those rates because if somebody's getting a lot of people to show property to, that means they're great at getting people in the car. But if their closing rate's under 50% or even under 35%, there's a problem when they're in the car. So we've got to kind of identify that and figure out what is the most important aspect of their business. If they're getting people in the car and they're not closing, there's a sales problem in the field. If they're not getting people in the car at all, then there's a problem on the phone. And those are things we have to evaluate and decide if we want to keep them on our lead system. Okay. Any other questions before I go through the step-by-step?
I think we're good for now. Yeah, I'm just combing through to kind of consolidate them for you, so carry on.
Okay, perfect. All right, so this is the step-by-step lead conversion process that we've been using. By the way, I came up with this process 15 years ago, and aside from the phone calls changing, nothing has changed. It still produces better than anybody else I've ever met. And so I'm one of those, if it's not broken, I'm not going to fix it. I'll just enhance it. So anyway, everybody gets a welcome letter from us with the first list of properties. We look at the first list of properties based on what they searched. And if they did not give us a price range, which is a lot of properties, right, in their search, we set up a default price range for every city. So for instance, we know Viera, Florida, which is one of the areas we service, the average price right now is between $300,000 and $600,000. Sure, there's homes that are $1 million and there's homes that are $250,000. But the reality is that's where the majority of the searches are or the sales are. So we're going to do a search, a generic search, a default search based on that criteria: 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, between $300,000 and $600,000. The key when we set up the searches and we set them up in listing updates is that we make sure they get at least 25 or more matches. Okay, we want to make sure they get 25 or more matches because if we don't get 25 or more matches, they're not going to be in front of the customer enough. In today's market, and this might change in different markets, in today's market, you want to set your listing updates, your save searches on daily notifications. Because if you just do weekly, which I know a lot of people do, if you just do weekly and a house comes on the market on Monday and they don't get anything until Saturday and they miss that house, you've just lost that customer. Not a chance in heck they're going to use you. So on this market, you set it up for daily. In a market where we get a tremendous amount of lists, you might go for a weekly or every 3 days or whatever. But right now, I'd be doing daily. And make sure you have 25 properties or more that match. And when you do that, you'll be in front of them 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. So again, on this slide, this is actually an old slide where we used to call 6 times. We now call, like I said, 3 times and get pretty much the same amount of contact rate. We run about 60 to 70%. It's funny, if you're in Canada, that's a higher number. If you're in the US, it's the lower number. So we usually run about 60 to 65 in the US, and we run about 65 to 75, even as high as 80 in Canada. Interesting. So the purpose of the call is really, the first call is for us is about verifying Verifying the information, verifying what they're looking for, but most importantly, verifying their time frame. We know that everybody is going to say we're just looking. That's what every single person says. In fact, in our training here at the ISA company, that's the biggest thing we train on is how to overcome the just looking thing, because everybody says that. We need to know the buying time frame. You need to know the buying time frame so you know how to set them up in your callback system. Some people you'll never get it out of, but most people you will if you actually do a good job. We call ourselves the masters of extraction. We want to extract as much information as possible. So during our calls, and this is again even before the ISA company, we had the same philosophies. We want to find out buying time frame. We want to find out, make sure the search that we set up is already there for them. And by the way, just to go back on this, I probably covered somewhere else. Every lead you get, when you get that lead, you set up a save search right when you get that lead. Don't wait, because if it takes you 3 or 4 days to get a hold of somebody, or you never get a hold of them, because we only get, we're going to not get a hold of 35% of the people, or if you don't get a hold of them, you want them getting listings from you immediately. Now, the complaint I've gotten from agents in the past, which drives me crazy, is, well, I don't want to have to do a search now and change the search later on. Well, that's just lame. Do a search immediately so they're getting listing updates from you right away. Send them a list of properties so they're getting listings from you right away. They know what you're getting. And then if you never get a hold of them, at least they're getting listings from you. And we never, ever take them off listings until they unsubscribe. So that's why we have lead sales from 2009. We're calling those leads. If they're active in our system, we're calling them. Now, we don't call, because we have 50,000 leads in our database, we don't call leads that are not active anymore. We just call leads that are active. It's about finding the gold in the coal, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but
yes, for sure.
But you got to find the gold. Good.
Yeah, a couple of questions for you. So a couple of people asked about the presentation. Yeah, we are recording this. One person, Brady, asked, "Do you let the potential client know about the property they're inquiring about over the voicemail? I find if I give them the info, they don't call back."
Yeah, no, I don't. We don't give any. On our first contact, we're not going to give them anything. And by the way, every call when you're going to leave a voicemail, so you're talking about a property inquiry lead, which is different than a raw registration lead. So a property inquiry lead is, hey, this is Mitch. I saw you're calling me about a question about 555 Main Street. Please give me a call back at blah, blah, blah. That's it. Every time you leave a voicemail, because we do that with our nurturing calls, we leave voicemails. It's 10 seconds. Hey, this is Mitch from Tropical Realty. Just want to make sure that you're getting the listings I'm sending. Please give me a call so we can go over what I'm sending. Remember, I can show you any homes in Brevard County, blah, blah, blah. Done. 10-second rule. You have 10 seconds to get their brain or you're going to lose them. Go ahead.
How do you set up a search if they only look at one listing? James asks.
So I take that listing, and that's what I set it up based on. It's not about the content. It's about the contact. So a lot of times we'll have the wrong information. They'll send us back, hey, thanks for sending me the information, but I'm really looking for this. Awesome. That's what we're trying to get out of that. So if they give you one, so but make sure you do it a variety. So it's a $300,000 home, right? Then you want to do your search between $200,000 and $400,000. So that way you're giving them enough. You're getting that 25 listings that match what they're looking for, roughly.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you've engaged them, which is the main point.
Exactly.
Nice.
Anything else?
Tim asks, is raw registration the same as forced registration?
Yes, that's the same thing. So when I talk about raw registration, I'm talking about, you come to my site and you want to look at listings, you put your info in, and that's all I get: name, email, phone number, and what they searched. That's a raw registration lead. It's by far the hardest lead in the world to convert, but the most lucrative lead also, because 99% of the realtors out there will never convert that.
Another question from Scott. He says, have you noticed an FCA service or drop in FCA service contact rates over the last 4 years? Our numbers have dropped to around 25%. We would love 65% rates.
No. No, our rates have been really, really consistent. We've been getting, on a low end is like 58. I think that's the lowest we have on anybody. Nope. And the reason why, now I'll tell you, on the first call, if you're just doing the first call, yes, the rate is 21%. That used to be 33%. So if you're just making one phone call, yes, that rate has definitely dropped from 33% to 21%.
I have this question from Julie, which I think is kind of cool. So she said, "How do you ask the right questions and get the right answers without sounding creepy? That we know as much as we do with the REW lead system."
Yeah, no, you just be creepy. It's okay. I've been a creep all my life. If you've met me, you know I'm a creep. But no, I'm kidding. Um, I just look like a creep now. I used to be cool before all this crap happened. So it's really about, so don't be a robot. You want to sit there and you want to build a relationship. In fact, most of my phone calls when I was calling leads personally, it's been a long time. I'd verify their information, but I would get more into lifestyle. I mean, I have that
Mm,
other information in front of me. I don't need to ask him all that information if I already know the information. But I want to get into who they are as a person, their lifestyle, do you have kids? So schools are important to you. Get off of the whole, I see here you want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath for $287,000.
yeah.
Have fun with the call. This is when I talked about personality. And I think I talk about it a little bit, but I'll touch on it real quick. When I talk to a customer on the phone, first of all, if I'm in a bad mood, which I'm never in a bad mood, so it's not an issue for me. But if you're in a bad mood, do not make phone calls. I don't care if it's coming in now and you need to call that lead now. Do not make phone calls if you can't shut it off. I've always learned years ago that as soon as I'm on, and whatever in my life is going on is not there anymore. But I realized over the years of managing thousands of people at this point in my life that most people can't do that. So if you can't smile while you dial, then don't be dialing because you're just going to
People
kill
can
everything.
feel it.
Yep,
People can feel it.
absolutely.
I have a friend who's a professional public speaker, and he has this ritual he goes through before he goes on stage or before he goes on a webinar. And the first thing he does is sit there and watch 10 minutes of his favorite comedian
Yep.
online. So get you laughing and get you having fun. And then he normally kind of jumps up and down and kind of just energizes his body before he picks up the phone. And it changes everything, right? Changes your whole tonality.
So what
it's
I
great.
generally do, and I didn't do it for this one, but I run webinars all the time, and I usually spend 5 minutes on the phone when I'm on the phone waiting for people to get to log in, play my guitar. That's my happy place. When I drive to work every day, I do the same thing. I listen to comedy. I have about a 20-minute ride to work, so I listen to comedy all the way to work. When I get to work, if you can see my office, I have a very large guitar amplifier, and I get here usually early so nobody else is here in the building, and I'll crank it up and rock out for about 15 or 20 minutes till my ears are bleeding. And
I like it.
yeah, it's awesome. And
I'm thinking of Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future.
that's me. That's exactly except he has a few more dollars than I do.
Yeah.
Any other questions there that you need me to answer? Well, before we go on.
Yeah, we're good. Do a bit more. Yeah, carry on.
So again, the buying time frame allows you to put them into a callback system. So again, once you've got them set up, you need to put them into a group. It's very important to keep your leads organized. Now, you don't want to overdo that. I mean, I don't know if they're on the call. If they are, sorry, I'll apologize now. But we went into their database when we took over as their ISA customers, and literally had, I don't know the number, of 200 different groups, and some groups had one lead in it. That's not how you do groups. You do groups really simple. So if you see on the screen here, I'm not going to read through these groups here, but those are the groups that we use. That's the majority of the groups that we use. The ones that are important to us is obviously active high-end and active short-term. Once we stick a lead in the no phone number, bad phone number, we forget about it. It's there and let the system do its thing. But shown property is probably one of my biggest pet peeves. I could pull up my database right now. We probably have 6,000 leads in there that our agents showed property to, and then they never called them again. It's amazing to me. Now we would do that, and we would call them with our in-house ISA stuff, but it was amazing to me how many realtors will show property to a customer and then move on to the next customer without writing a contract. But these are the groups that we have. Every group has a purpose, and we constantly move leads based on the conversation. So we might go from active lead to active lead short term to show property, or to calendar to shown property. Does that all make sense? Hopefully it does. Any questions about any of that stuff before we get into drip campaigns and then the phone call?
Yeah, there's a couple more questions here. So I don't know if you touched on this one, but somebody said, do you use immediate registration or after a number of page views? Michael asked that question.
Yeah, so we've gone back and forth on this ourselves. Currently, right now, it's immediate. We're still getting our 10+%. My goal is 10% or better on pay-per-click capture rates. So we've been doing it with instant registration, and that's been working fine for us.
Yeah.
So, and I get the one time. Here's what I think about the one time. This is my personal philosophy on it, and I could be completely wrong. Which, if you talk to my wife, she'll tell you who I am. Um, I think when people go in and they look at one or two or three listings, and all of a sudden you make them register, they kind of feel like a bait and switch. Whereas I make them register right up front. They know what they're getting. If you don't want to register, go ahead with the other 90% that don't register. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care about the ones that don't register. I care about the ones that register. Those are my potential sales.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Amira had a question. What's the best way to overcome the just looking people?
So just looking, we said that's awesome because you know what, everybody I talk to is just looking. What I want to do though is make sure that I'm sending you the right stuff. So when you're ready, you're ready. That's all. We know you're not buying a house right now. Everybody's not buying a house right now. You're just starting your search, and that's it.
Play the long game.
Yep. Yeah. And then as you disarm them with that, and then we start talking more about personality and again using life. And I'll tell you and again I might talk about this in the call part, but with me, I've been lucky enough to travel pretty much most of Canada and most of the United States. When I got on the phone, the conversation was always about the lifestyle, but I'm also lucky enough to have been to a lot of places. So if it's a guy, I'm usually going to talk sports. And then once in a while, I don't play sports. I'm like, all right, well, I can't talk to you about that then maybe I'll say, well, you're a musician. I'm a guitar player. If it's a woman, honestly, and this is totally inappropriate, but I'll just, flirt and make stupid jokes and have a good time. I'm just playing off whatever it has, whatever my personality brings out. I have a really, really bad problem with things coming out and then I think about them. It's got me into a lot of trouble over the years, especially when I'm speaking in front of 500 people. But sometimes.
But it's honest. It's you. It's a real reflection of you. So I don't think you can go wrong with the truth.
Well, that's the way I look at things, and that's when you're on the phone with people, just be yourself. Don't be nervous. Here's the thing. I want you all. We're going to do a little exercise here. Everybody, keep your left hand free for a second. And I want you to, if you've ever registered on a website before, raise your hand. Even you, Cal, raise your hand. All right. Are your hands raised? Okay. Now, if you've ever given them a good phone number, if you don't want to call, raise your hand. Now, I'll tell you, out of the 500 people that are on this call, I would bet you about 6 of you raised your hand. We'll get about a 3 to 4% people who registered, even though they have no desire to look for a house. But the reality is, everybody who gives you their phone number expects a phone call. And what we hear on a daily basis, thank you so much for calling. I've registered on a half a dozen websites and no one's ever called me before. I hear that every day, every single day. Yeah. And have been for years. Except years ago I registered on 2 websites. Now I registered on 5 websites or 6 websites. So everybody's expecting your phone call. If they give you a phone number and you don't call, you are actually bad. They don't like you anymore.
So disappointed, right?
Yeah, they expected a phone call. And again, think about yourself. If you give your phone number on a website, what do you expect? You expect a phone call, not a bunch of emails and text. I want a phone call. Okay. Any other questions before I go into drip campaigns? We good?
Yeah, Caroline had a question, which was, any recommendations for follow-up in low inventory areas? We have a problem with lack of inventory, which meets the client's criteria.
Yeah, probably the most challenging thing you can deal with. So I'll give you an example. And we have the same problem here. We have our normal market. We have 6,000 listings right now. We have 2,000 listings. During the market crash, we had 11,000 listings, and we were just kicking butt because most of your internet leads are buyer leads. So in a tough market like this, it's just a challenge. The key is making sure that you're on top and actually doing your job and checking listings for your customers. If you have someone that's ready to buy and they're looking for something, then you need to find them something ready to buy. We just had a customer that I coached one of my agents on looking in this particular area. So I said, look, send out letters to every single person in that area saying, have a buyer that wants to buy only in this area. They ended up getting 4 showings out of it and sold them a house and got 1 listing. So be creative. Be creative. Anything else before I go on?
One question from Greg was, do you set up searches through your personal website or through your real estate board's portal system?
Oh, great question. That's an awesome question. Always through your personal website. You control that. So here's the challenge, and I'll give you a real life experiences I've done twice now. Before I had my own systems, and now before we use the REW system, we would set them up in the MLS. Well, in 2006, they decided to change MLS systems. and we had 10,000 leads in the MLS at that point, and we lost all of them. So we got their names and email addresses. We lost all the searches. We had to manually put them all in. The next time that happened, which is 2010 or 12, I forget, we had 18,000 leads, but at this point I only had a couple that were in there, so it wasn't bad because we built our own systems after 2006. So always put them in your own system. You can't control what your board is going to do with regards to switching MLSs, and unless they're staying within the same family of MLSs, you'll lose those searches. Okay. The other thing is a lot of MLS searches will stop sending listings after 90 or 120 days. So you've got to pay attention to that too. If they have, because then if you do large lead volume like we do, it won't work. That makes sense. You're going to lose people because if you have 300 leads in your database, 400 leads in your database, you're not going to pay attention to who's expiring, who's not expiring. Okay. Any other questions?
One more for you. So Ron asked, what do you do after you have no contact over the 4 calls? Do you set up a call for the future or call it a dead lead?
Yeah, so we call at that point, we put them into a once a month callback in our brokerage. But the contact rate is so low, but we always put them in there. What we find is because we send everybody up in listing updates and we do have a pretty effective drip campaign, that people that are serious, like, respect the fact that after 6 months we're still sending them stuff, and will reach out to us. But we lose lots of sales. I mean, there's just nothing we can do about it. What I've learned over the years is we're going to chase the stuff we know we can get, and I'm not going to kill myself with the stuff that I don't know if I can get. So we know we're getting a hold of 65, 70% of those leads. I don't really worry about the other 30% if they become something great, but you can't do anything about people not answering the phone. Okay.
Right.
All right. So let's move on to drip campaigns. So if you're a team leader or a broker, please take control of the drip campaigns. Don't allow your agents to set them up. You need to have a consistent message coming from your team. Also, if you're an agent or even a team leader, make sure that you have somebody read what you're writing. I can't tell you the stuff that I've seen in the past. I mean, if you're using a system like Happy Grasshopper, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're doing your own drip campaigns, you got to make sure that you're grammatically correct, spelling is correct, and that it makes sense. It also has to be relevant. I still see drip campaigns out there with gardening tips and recipes. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. The only reason why they came to your site, there's only one reason they came to your site. That's to look at listings. They don't care about you. They don't care about your dog. They don't care about your guinea pig. I did get one sale. Actually, I've had 7 transactions now from them, who's a pro baseball player. And the only reason why he picked me on my website is because on my profile it says I was a baseball player. So that was kind of cool. But other than that, out of my, I don't know how many sales I've had, 1,000 sales. That was the only one that ever picked me because of something I did there. Make sure your drips are relevant. Make sure that keep that 10-second rule in play when you write also. So if you're writing an email to somebody, or if you on a drip campaign, keep it to 1 paragraph or less with a link to something if they want more information. Excuse me. You don't want to, think about yourself. And I always put myself in the consumer's mode, which is how I've been able to come up with all this stuff all these years. If I get an email that's more than a paragraph long, I read the paragraph. It doesn't grab me. I delete it. I still do that today. I have not consumers, but I have agents reach out to me all the time and write me books. I can't read a book. I'm way too ADD. So if you don't capture me in 10 seconds, I'm not going to read what you write me.
I think as well on that, like I always say to people, like, what's your intention out of the email? What action do you want them to take? And one of my sales people actually bought me a copy of War and Peace because I always use that as the analogy. But if you look in your own personal inbox, and you'll find the messages that are still in your inbox that have been there for weeks are the ones which are super long with multiple links asking you to do a lot of stuff.
Right.
So that's just the way it goes. Make it simple, make it concise, give them a call to action, and then move on.
Right. Exactly. So the final part of this on drip campaigns is if you're setting everybody up in listings, which if you're not, shame on you. By the way, one of our customers, 12,000 listings, 10,000 with no searches set up. They might as well have taken that money and just dumped it down the drain, because now you have 10,000 leads not getting anything from you but a drip campaign of things that they could care less about. It's just, again, not very smart. The bottom down here is the drip that I use. I've been using since day one, and I'm going to tell you how techie I am, and I don't tell this to a lot of people. But when I first got in the business, I was using AOL address book as my contact manager. Pretty pathetic. And when I got slow, I would start with A because it was alphabetical, and I'd say, "Hi, Ann, just checking in, making sure you're getting my listing updates. If you have any questions or would like to see any properties, don't hesitate to ask." I also would add on to this. Remember, I can show you any properties in Brevard County. I would never get past the letter I before I was slam busy again. This drip today, 16 years later, is still our number one drip campaign. You don't need a whole bunch of fluff out there because they're not going to read it. But you want stuff that's going to provoke, like Tim said, provoke a reaction. Okay? All right, callback schedule. So this is our schedule that we use to call back leads. This is not written in stone. So obviously our first call, we get a hold of them, and after we get a hold of somebody, we're going to call back, and I'm not saying just call and leave a message. We're going to contact them a week later. And we contact them a week later for multiple reasons. And this is market driven. We're in a market in Florida where people come here or go on the website who are in New York or in Boston or California or Michigan, Ohio, and they're not buying for a year or two or three or five sometimes. But often we'll call somebody on the initial call, and yeah, we're not buying for till sometime next year, and then they start getting listings and start looking at everything, and within a week they've changed their mind. So it's really interesting when they do that, they change their mind, and now they buy within 2 or 3 months because interest rates are low right now, prices are still pretty good around here, so that changes. So we call everybody a week after we make contact, and then depending on their buying time frame after that call will depend on the callback schedule. And I have it in front of you, and I'm going to read it those because I want you to understand it. If they're buying in 12 months or more, we're going to call once every 2 months. When they get to 6 months, or if they're buying within 6 months, we're going to call every 6 weeks until they get to 3 months. All these calls, by the way, are just fluff calls. How you doing? How the kids? I know little Billy has surgery. How's that going? Make sure you take really, really good notes. When they get to 3 months, we're going to call once a month. And when they get to a month, that's when we got to buckle down. When they say we're coming down, what month are we in? Almost December. They're coming down in January. We need to start actually really at this point here is when I'd switch them into the MLS. So going back to the question we had a little while ago about the MLS, at this point here, because the IDX of almost every IDX system out there is not going to have enough detail at this point, and it could even happen at the 3 month level mark, but even definitely at the 1 month mark, we're going to set them up in a lot more detailed search that they're looking for. Is not going to produce as many listings as it did, but now we're going to get serious, because if you're not getting serious near the end when they're really looking, now you're not listening and you're not giving them what they want. Any questions about that? Big stuff there. This is the key to everything right here.
Daryl is asking if he can have a copy of the drip campaign.
Sure, I charge $6,000 for it. Just to send me a money order who will send it over. If you reach out to me, I don't mind sharing my drip campaign with you.
There you
go. I have my contact info at the last slide here, so I don't mind.
Sounds like you're going to be a popular man after this.
Yeah. So just so you know, if you send this to me today, it could take me a while before I get to you. I'm about 300 emails behind right now. I'm actually, believe this or not, I'm going to a hotel room tonight to do emails, because if I go home to my wife, I won't get anything done. And if I go in a hotel room, I'm locked in a room, and I'll sit there and get through. I'll probably get through. I have 300 I haven't read. I have probably another 700 I have to respond to at some point. Any other questions?
Yeah. So Ron was asking, do you require a phone number when registering, or make it optional?
We make it optional. So what we found over the years is when we made it mandatory, which we used to, if you make it mandatory, 50% will give you a bad phone number. When you make it optional, 50% will give you the phone number. That makes sense? Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, you're doing twice as much work to find out it's a bad phone number. And a lot of our customers do make everybody register with a phone number, and we see about a 32% bad phone number rate. Just me and my stats. Any other questions before I go on to the next part?
I think you can go on for now.
Okay. So why an ISA deposit? So whether you're doing in-house or outsourcing, why do you want an ISA? And this is very important. This is, I hope you're not taking this as a sales pitch. This is as why you need to have this. And again, if by all means do this in-house if you prefer. It's a lot of fun. I don't know if I say that sarcastically or not. But here's the thing: with an ISA department that every lead that you generate as a broker, as a team, or as an agent is getting called. Again, we're not going to get a hold of everybody, but they also help you manage all aspects of your leads. So they're going to sit there and they're going to pay attention to the agents. They're going to micromanage the agents. With our ISAs that are in-house, they transfer agents all the time. Transfer leads rather from agents, like the one I told you about a little while ago. They advise me on which agents we should take out of our lead system. We meet quarterly and have that conversation of who we should take off the system. So it's important as a broker or team leader, or even as an agent, it's almost impossible to stay on top of this stuff. The other thing that we found is for people that are doing in-house ISAs, you kind of have to have a dedicated person that's just doing first calls and a dedicated person that's doing nurturing, because the challenge that you have is the first calls add up really quickly. Not a big deal if you're getting one lead a day or two leads a day, but say you're like our typical customer gets 100 to 300 leads. We'll say 300 leads a day just to use an easy number. That's number 10. So they're getting 10 leads a day. So today you get 10 leads and you got we'll even say 10 with phone numbers. You're going to get a hold of 2 to 3 of those. That means tomorrow you have 17 leads to get a hold of. The next day you have 20 something. The next day you have 30 something. The next thing you know, you have 50, 60, 70 leads within a week that you haven't gotten a hold of yet. So it's important to kind of separate those responsibilities. We have 4 in-house ISAs doing first calls and doing nurturing. So we make sure that we cover all the gambits for that. Another thing the ISA does for us is we have agents that are newer agents, and every once in a while they'll get a lead that's like $1 million lead, and $1 million lead in Brevard County, Florida is like a $25 million lead somewhere else. Our ISAs will pay attention to that, and they'll transfer them out of the agents into an agent we know can handle a higher end property. They also make sure the searches are updated and the property inquiries are responded to on time. We actually have taken that out of the agent's hands now, and we respond to property inquiries from the ISA department because we don't trust the agents to actually make phone calls to even the property inquiries. And then the final thing I see a lot with my friends that are using ISAs, they have them do a lot of admin work, and then that admin work becomes more admin work, and the next thing you know, they're calling 2 hours a day and doing 6 hours a day of admin. It's got to be the other way around. 6 hours a day of calling, 2 hours a day of admin.
Good question on that point, Mitch. So a couple of people have asked, Christy asked, what are your daily goals as far as how many dials per day, contacted people, appointments, etc.?
Sure. I don't know if I know all this stuff off the top of my head, but the minimum allowable for them to stay here is 100 calls a day, which is fairly easy if you're using a dialer system. We use a couple different dialer systems. The contact rate we know is going to be around 20 to 30%, depending on which lead it is and time frame, what type of call it is. For instance, on an active lead, we're going to get a hold of a lot more people than we will on a lead we haven't talked to yet. Things like that, we'll get a higher contact rate. Is that the whole question? Did I miss something?
No, I think that covers it. Yeah.
Okay. Any other ones?
Yeah, another one was from Greg, which I think is a good question, is how does the ISA call? Are they licensed agents?
Okay, so 2 different missions, right? When I had everything in-house, they were licensed. The way I've learned over the years now is to not have license. So the reason being is when you have licensed ISAs, and people will argue with me on this, but I'm always right, so I don't listen. That was wrong. The reason why I stopped doing the licensed ISAs is because they would be on the phone for 45 minutes with a lead. And what happened several times is they did not want to work with the agent anymore. They wanted to work with the ISA because that was the entire relationship. So now we've learned over the years not to have licensed, so they can't talk about real estate, and we connect them with the agent more often. So we send our agents action items, which is, hey, we just talked to Bill Smith. He has questions about this. I told him that I'm just your assistant, so I can't help. Go ahead and give him a call. So because you're not legally allowed to talk real estate when you're not licensed, which we're very strict on here, we've actually fired people because they were ex-realtors and wanted to talk real estate. It's about touching base and what can we get our realtor to talk to you about to help you.
Right. And another good question to that same point kind of says, do ISAs check to see if the agent has called before they call?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, again, notes are the most important things that we have to have. So we have our notes section. So when we pull our list, the first when we make it before we pick up the phone and call someone, we read all the notes. So it's not a blind call. I mean, you're calling, you know a little bit about what happened. You know if the agent talked to them. Great. I see Melissa talked to you a couple weeks ago. I just wanted to touch base to see if you had any questions about anything. Most of the calls are just when we're doing through the ISA stuff is just about making sure that they're happy and if they need anything answered for them.
Got it.
Okay.
And Joe is asking, how do you pay ISA? I don't know if he means how much do you pay or actually just how does he pay you?
Yeah. Well, I'm not getting into I'm not here to sell my ISA services here. Is to help you guys build your company. So if you're interested in that, we can have that conversation later on. Those of you who know me know I don't do these things for sales pitches. I do these things to help people. So generally, rule of thumb is our ISAs get the ones that were licensed get when they were licensed, we're getting they're at a $30,000 base and 5% of commission, 5% of the commission. When they're non-ISAs, their base is about the same, and it's bonus based on how many it's not a commission-based thing. It's based on how many closings per month. That's all. Pretty simple.
Got it. Lindsay's asking, what time do your agents do their calls? Is there a best time?
There are best times, and actually, these are best times that are quoted from every source out there. 8:30 in the morning till 10 in the morning. Some say 8 to 10. I struggle with calling people before 8:30 because I know I get pissed when I get called before 8:30 in the morning, even though I'm at work at 6. And then 4 to 6 at night. And then Saturdays and Sundays are really interesting. We've done a lot of testing on this over the years, and we've learned. I say over the years a lot. I just noticed that. I guess I'm getting old.
Over the years.
Over the years. Yeah, I'm over the hill. We saw my picture. Damn, come on. What happened to me?
We took the picture off the screen. So.
No, thank God. I saw myself in the mirror a couple weeks ago. I'm like, what the hell happened? That's why I don't have mirrors in my house. Anyways, I don't even know what I was talking about there. What was I just saying?
We were talking about best time of the day to call.
Oh, yes, there you go. Okay. So weekends, thank you. Glad somebody listens. Weekends we found between noon and 5. So if we call after 5, people tend to get upset on a Saturday or Sunday. And if we call before noon, they tend to get upset. So interesting. So we found noon to 5. People are happy to talk to you all day long. Any other questions before I go to the slide here?
I think we are good for now. Yeah, carry on.
Because I have no problem going along here, but we're almost at an hour. So I know we told people we'd.
Let's get through why don't we get through the rest of the slides and then we can do a Q&A at the end.
I'm here for as long as you want me here. I don't care. All right. So this is just an example of us tracking our calls because it's very important that you track everything to understand it. So in this lead here, we had we called 829 leads. And by the way, to get a hold, and then we contacted 590, so we had a 71% contact rate. It took us 2,967 calls to get a hold of 590 people. Everybody get that? That's a lot of calls. We had, out of those 590 contacts, we had 358 positive outcomes. And what that means, 190 were active. That means 190 leads were going to buy a house at some point. They just weren't sure when. 144 were calendared, means they're going to buy a house and they know when. And 44 were live transfers, which is we're buying a house within 30 days. So that's a 1 month call for actually I think that was a 2 months call for that customer. But that gives you an idea on the amount of, oh, I'm sorry. that was my office. It shows you what I know. I just look at the numbers. I go, I know those numbers. Those are my numbers from my brokerage. So that's some pretty interesting numbers there. The biggest thing to take into account there is how many calls it took us to get a hold of those 590 people. If we had only called once, we'd have only gotten a hold of, 160 people. Big difference, right? Negative outcomes, we had 232. So, and this is another reason why I use an ISA, is when your agent get these leads. So 232 negative outcomes out of those 590. So almost half the people are bad, right? 46% there, I think that is. And if 46% were bad, your agents are going to think that all leads are bad. So when you're doing, when you have someone else calling and scrubbing the leads for you, all of a sudden all the leads the agents get are better. Therefore, the mindset from the agents is better because all the leads are good. Hopefully that makes sense. Out of that negative outcomes, we had 104 unsubscribe, 110 bad phone numbers, and 18 were other negative dispositions. So that's just give you an idea of stats. And these are pretty consistent with everybody. We have, I don't know how many people call for right now, 60, 70 people we call for right now, brokerages and teams. Those numbers are pretty consistent with pretty much everybody we talk to, or we call for. So team building, if you're looking to build a team, and by the way, everybody, if you're just an agent out there, I don't mean to minimize just an agent, but your goal should always be to build a team. If you're generating leads, then you can build a team with those leads. So you should be thinking about doing that. And that's a whole other conversation. Hire slowly, fire quickly. I'm if you ever see me speak in public, which I know some of you have, I fire lots of people. I have no patience at all for people that don't work. Very, very picky about who we put on our lead system. In fact, the way we do things now is they have to work for me for 90 days in the brokerage. And at the end of 90 days, if they want to be on the lead system, if I feel like they actually have work ethic, then I'll put them on. I never put anybody on leads right away anymore because I know 75% of the people will never do their job. First impression is everything. When I meet a person for the first time, they have to be immediately attractive to me. And that doesn't mean physically attractive. They just mean personality-wise. Are they dressed professionally? We have people coming to our office dressed in shorts and flip-flops and Hawaiian shirts. I don't even interview those people anymore. I won't waste my time. I want professional, and I want to most importantly, have a smile on their face. And then finally on team building, positivity. You have to keep, finally, there's more stuff on team building here. You have to keep positive people. One person, and I'm dealing with this right now, I have one agent in my office who he's going through a tough time, personally, and he's taking it out on everybody. And I'm actually going to fire him tomorrow, which is tough because he's been with me for 7 years and he's actually a good producer. But I don't care how good a producer is. If they're a cancer, they need to go. Add your agents based on lead flow. So for every 30 leads you're getting, you can add one agent. So if you're an individual agent getting 100 leads a month, you should have at least one, if not two people, besides you handling leads. Hire an assistant or an ISA. It's important. You need to have somebody that's doing that stuff. If they're going to do admin, make sure they block their time. And accountability. If you're going to bring on agents, you have to have accountability. So in summary, before we get to questions, send every lead a list of properties regardless of if you get a hold of them or not. Set it up right away. Every lead needs to be set up in the listing update system. Phone calls are mandatory. To give you an example on that, someone asked earlier about phone calls versus emails. We actually checked that. I don't think it was last year. I think it was the year before. It was 10-1 in the sales ratio. So our agents, we had one agent that had 30 sales from leads that year. And we had other agents that weren't making their phone calls, and we could tell they had 1 to 3 sales per year. It was a 10-1 ratio of that, which was pretty amazing stuff. Keep your drip campaigns relevant. And one other thing real quick that just popped in my brain. When you're getting an email from somebody, one of the ways that we encourage our agents to do this, and they don't all do it, but when you get an email inquiry, don't email back. If you have their phone number, pick up the phone, call them up, say, hey, I got your email, but I was on the way out. I wanted to make sure that that I could answer your question because I'm not going to be back to my email till later tonight. And then you go on to the question. Any chance you have to talk to that person face-to-face, word-to-word, don't do chicken marketing. You want to make sure you talk to that person. Check your agents or yourself. If you don't know your numbers, who's going to know your numbers? I'm rattling off numbers off the top of my head here because I know my numbers. I don't care about the percentage of lead conversion anymore like I used to. I care about how many sales it gets. Now, our lead conversion stats are really good, but ultimately, as long as my ROI, my return on investment is 5-1 or 3-1 minimum, I like 5-1, I'm good with that. So if that is a lesser conversion rate, I'm okay with that. I don't care as much anymore. If you're not going to make phone calls, hire an ISA. All right. And that's my info. Let me just see what these other things are. That's just me. I'll leave that up there so you can read it. Actually, go to the next slide. It has more info. I think better. Yeah, there you go. That's the inside sales stuff. All right, questions. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, so we have a few more questions here as well. For anybody who's listening and has to drop off because they have to run somewhere because we've just gone over an hour, we are going to have a recording of this. I'm actually just putting a link in the notes in the chat right now that will go through to our ISA internally here. So if you've listened to this, you're an existing customer, then feel free to reach out to your product consultant with Real Estate Webmasters, or if you want to ask Mitch a question personally, you can do that. You can also just use the link that I've put in the chat and book an appointment for any time that's appropriate for you, and we'll set up the right person to be on the phone with you at that time. So the link is now in the chat. If you click that, you can book it straight away. Okay, outstanding questions that you have. Michael was saying, great job. Please send you the recording. We absolutely will do. A question from Ron. When a lead unsubscribes, do you remove them from the database since you can't drip to them anymore?
Okay, so we used to not do that until we got too many leads in our database. So we have now. We used to be really protective of our leads for our agents. Over the years, I've realized, especially the past couple of years since I started the ISA company, it's kind of funny because we don't call as much for my real estate company as we used to, which is very bizarre. But no, we actually if they unsubscribe, we just get rid of them. I can't send them anything anymore legally. We really now. I will tell you, and we're not doing as good a job of this again because we have so many darn leads. But we were able to salvage 50% of the leads who unsubscribe by calling them up. Most of the time, they unsubscribe because of a drip campaign and not listings. So we would call people up. And the worst thing you'll hear, and you'll hear it a lot. Well, thanks for all your listings, but we bought a house from somebody. That means you didn't do a good job. If you yeah. So you should call and try to save them. You can't email them anything legally, but you can call them still.
Yeah. And similar to that question from Melissa, what do you do with leads that you call and they say not to contact them again?
I still try. We're still going to send them list unless they unsubscribe. We're going to continue to send them listing updates. So, and that's your call. I mean, if they're complete jerks, do you want to work with them anyways?
Right.
I mean, we're really. I train my agents all the time about, if someone treats you like crap, then get rid of them. There's plenty of sales to go. I mean, there's sales everywhere. You just got to find them. You just got to generate leads.
Yeah. Can you call a phone number if it is registered as a do not call number?
Yes, because when they register on your site, that means they gave you permission to call them.
Okay, so that is explicit permission.
Yep.
So another question from Steve, and I think you covered this, but I think it's maybe a good way to encapsulate a lot of the discussion. Can you touch on, or can you just recap what the pros and cons of having an ISA calling instead of the agents?
Sure. All right. So if you're a team leader or a broker, I'll talk about that mainly to them. The challenge with being a broker or a team leader, and the other one who's the rainmaker for the group, is you don't have a clue what your agents are really doing. And we know, and I'm telling you this because I've been doing this for a long time, that your agents, if they call, and here's how you know if they're calling, by the way, look in the notes section. If they write left message all the time, they're not making phone calls, because we know if they're calling, they're going to get a hold of 21%, right? So if they call just once. So at least with an ISA or a first call person, you have the security of knowing that your leads are being called in a timely manner. And at least they're being attempted to be called in a timely manner. So that's why you have it. I mean, it took me, let's see, I started with the ISA department in my company after 2 years of being in business. So once I realized that my agents, no matter what I did, were going to be terrible, even though my systems were great, until we started making phone calls 12 years ago, that's when everything started changing.
Great. Russell asks, when following up with a long-term lead, once you call them every 2 months and they don't answer the phone, do you leave a voicemail, text them, email them? If they don't answer, do you call them in 2 months or sooner?
All of the above. So if if we've already had a conversation with the customer and we're talking to them, we're going to send them. We're going to leave messages. We're going to text them. Yes. So and we call them. We don't want to harass them, but we're going to try to get a hold of them. But even if you just leave a voicemail, they're going to know you're trying. And right now, the biggest complaint I hear from the consumer about realtors is the consumer thinks they do all the work. Right? They go on Zillow, they go on your website, they find the houses, and you're just trying to get in their mind, you're just trying to make thousands of dollars for them doing all the work. So you got to show the effort. If you don't show the effort, then you lose track. If you can't get to all of your leads, and we've only done this a couple of times, but we have done it when we've fallen behind. Not here at the ISA company, but in my brokerage, and I haven't done it for a couple of years. Is we used slide broadcast. And you can send a voicemail to every single person in your database through slide broadcast. It's very affordable. I forget the numbers, but I think it's like $60 for 500 people or something like that. So you gotta at least make an effort.
Yeah. Canadian question: in Canada, how can an ISA call? It's against our board rules. That's from Brandon.
Okay, so it's against the rules. At least for the companies that we're calling for right now, because we know this, it's against the rules if we're talking real estate. We do not talk real estate. We're just verifying leads and talking about lifestyle and trying to get that conversation over to the agent. So far, we call for a lot of Canadian companies. We've not had any issues at all.
It's purely getting the connection. You're not getting into details.
Yep.
Yeah. A few questions about dialers. Do you use a specific dialer?
So we use a couple. We use Phone Burner, which I think is in our REW system, and we use Mojo. So we use two of them. Phone Burner is more on individual calls, and when we want to get to a whole bunch of calls in a day, want to get to 200 or 300 calls in a day. So people that we talked about, those leads that we never got hold of. So we call that a no phone number list. No contact, good phone number list. We'll spin through those and we'll get through 300 in a day, 400 in a day, just spinning through on Mojo, which is great. But most of that stuff we do with Phone Burner and Mojo.
Patrick asks, what commission split do you offer agents that convert your leads?
All right, so that's evolved over years, mainly because I've become lazy and a lot's changed since I started Inside Sales Agents, because I literally spend about 4 hours a week with my real estate brokerage and 60 hours a week with the ISA company. So when we first started, everything was 50%. If I was more in control of my business right now, I would be at 50% on leads. The challenge you have is when someone's been with you for a long time and they become successful in your leads, even if they're just doing leads, every broker in the county in your area is trying to recruit them. You all know this. So they're recruiting, we pay a 70% split. I know Mitch is only paying you 50%. At some point, there's going to be a change in their mindset, and they're going to think that all those leads are theirs. And that's where the big challenge comes. Once they start thinking those leads are theirs, and I'm dealing with that one agent I told you about earlier right now. Once they think the leads are theirs, you're in trouble with that agent, because they're gonna leave for that higher split, and they're not gonna make it, but they're gonna leave because they think the reason why they're successful is themselves and not you. But generally speaking, so right now what we do with all of our agents that are on leads, I just get a 30% referral fee. So that's that. I'm keeping it simple now. I don't charge them on their personal stuff anymore. We merged our company with EXP Realty earlier in June, and my goal is to get out of the real estate business and not have to deal with it. I have a general manager that runs the day-to-day operations, so I don't have to do much. But I want to make sure that I'm not doing that, because I love this. Internet and lead conversion and ISA, that's like my passion. I love this stuff. Any other questions?
So yeah, the last one I wanted to touch on, a few people have asked questions around PPC and Google AdWords and how to spend money on Facebook and other social media and to generate and drive more leads so that you have a reason to phone them in the first place.
Right.
I would absolutely say that that's probably a separate topic for us to discuss. We wanted to kind of keep this focused on lead gen today. But if you have questions around that, reach out to your product consultant, reach out to Mitch, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. On that note as well, if you're listening to this and there's other topics that you would like us to cover in more detail and bring on a guest expert such as Mitch to kind of deep dive into search engine optimization, PPC, or whatever else it is that you want to hear more about, please let us know. The best place to do it is probably to go into the Facebook group and just comment on Facebook, and we'll be sure to see that. Yeah, let us know what you guys want to hear more about, because the engagement in this call has been fantastic. Your questions, I got pages of questions here. Scrolling down my computer screen, we've had a very a great turnout for this. So thanks everybody for taking time out of your day to show up, and thank you finally and most importantly to Mitch for sharing your godfatherly lead generation strategies and lots of secrets. And I know you don't share all this information with everybody, so I appreciate you going into the amount of detail that you did today.
Sure. My pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm always available. Most people who know me know I'm an open book, and I will help you as much as I can.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mitch.
All right. Take care, guys.